Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos to review films, either current or classic, or sometimes, like this week, to bring a whole bunch of recommendations, question mark, to you. Why did I do a question mark? There's no question mark. We're counting down our top 10 films of 2020. I guess the question mark is whether these films might make your top 10 list. We are very interested not only to share our picks with all of you, and welcome if you're just tuning in live or through digital tape delay. Good to see you. But also, we'd love to hear your picks as well. So if you are joining us live, feel free to drop those in the live chat during the show. Let us know why you love the movies that you love. We'll be happy to share some of those thoughts on air. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, however you digest your podcast, maybe it's been a year since we recorded this relatively. You know what? We still want to hear your favorite movies. So feel free to shoot those our way on Facebook or Twitter at MB Podcast. Let us know what your faves are. But we've already got a whole bunch of folks with us in the live chat. Jordan Riley, Hamstract, Mary Kay Meadows. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see you all. Folks, 2020 was a weird year. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
Weird doesn't even begin to cover it.
Right, especially for film. So this might be, I don't know, this might be a little different than in previous years where we've done this. But let me introduce you to my co-host, and then we're going to dive right in to the films that made our top 10 lists from 2020. Jim Pugliafico is here with us in the virtual studio. Hey, sweetheart, how's it going?
Hey, babe. Thank you for the introduction. It's going good. The new year was off to a slightly rocky start, but it seems like we're hitting our stride a little bit now, and that's good, whether in terms of movies or anything else. I'm just glad to be here with you, babe, and with you, Will, and finally getting our top 10 list, talk about our favorite movies of last year. We have a lot to talk about. The movies themselves, how we arrived at those, and all the stuff. So I'm just glad to be here. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm very glad to have you here too. We've kind of kept our list secret from each other, so I'm very curious what you picked, babe. There's one more gentleman here whose list I'm also very curious about. William Lindis is here with us in the studio. Hey, Will, how are you?
Hey, Brad. Hey, Jim. Yeah, I was thinking to what you said in the opening, is it a question mark, how we do these recommendations? And to me, it's definitely an exclamation mark. I'm really excited to champion the films that most caught my eye, most caught my heart, most caught my attention over this last year. And I can't wait to hear the ones that the two of you are going to stump for as well.
Indeed. I think it's going to be an interesting discussion as always. I'm very curious about what kinds of overlap there may be, if any. When it comes to our different movie tastes, we kind of come at things different ways sometimes, I think. Right?
All different angles. You're coming in from here. I'm sneaking in over here. Jim's rushing in over here. Yeah. We got all angles covered.
It is funny, though. Every year, at least up until 2020, we've usually kind of at least had two or three that sort of universally made our lists. Not necessarily in the same spot, but they made each of our lists. I'm curious to see if that's going to happen again, just given what the happened with movies in 2020.
Hey, babe, this is an adult, mature audience's podcast. So you could say those words you just tried to cover up.
Here we go. Let me rewind. Given the fuck happened to movies in 2020, who knows what our lists are going to be like. Right. Oh my gosh, Bobby Miller in the house. Hey, Bobby. Good to see you. Mike Lovins. Wow, I got really excited there, Mike, but I am excitable when you're involved. Our very own Magic Mike from the Real Gay Movie Podcast, Real Gay Movie Show.
Real Gay Movie Show.
Real Gay Movie Show, yes. Also a great podcast, even though I flubbed the name. Be sure to listen. And Oh my gosh, William Durr is here too. Hey, William. Anytime
Will.
we get our Will Lindis
We got two Wills.
and we get William Durr involved, there's going to be magic happening. So
I was doing like a Wonder Twins like rings.
is that what that was?
Thing.
I wasn't sure if it was that or like a Iron Man like gauntlet thing.
Or like maybe like when the football helmets like crash together on Monday Night Football. I'm losing the plot of the analogy, but
yeah,
we're smashing together into one. Oh wow, into one Uber Will, I guess.
I watched those two Wills smash. I'm just saying. Anyway, we
a
got
war of wills.
We got a lot to talk about. Mike says thanks for the butt plug, guys. You're welcome. They're fun.
Well, at least you got our Christmas gift.
Yeah. Thank you, USPS.
Even if it took 45 days to arrive in the mail, right? It still came. Anyway. All right. So we are going to be counting down our top 10 films of 2020. Before we get started, though, Jim, Will, did you fellas put your lists in any kind of order, or is it just 10 movies that made your list, but you don't really know what order, if any, they land? How do you approach this?
Will, you go first.
Yeah, so there's no science to this. No matter, if you've seen exactly 10 movies or if you've seen 1,010 movies over the course of the last year, your list is going to be very much subjective and subject to the whims that your own whims at the time that you're making the list. I mean, come back a week from now and my list will be in a different order and other films will be in there. So I'm not too precious about that. I did rank them from 10 to 1 in terms of like, as I'm feeling it right now, what that order is. A lot of great films didn't quite even make that 1 through 10 as well. So this is just sort of like a countdown sampler of 10 movies that rocked my world.
Yeah, and Will, I'm with you. I mean, this was such a crazy year. I mean, my list actually includes a couple of 2019 films that I didn't get to see until this year, and I couldn't include them necessarily last year. This year, there'll be maybe some films on someone's list, one of our lists, that the other guys didn't get to see because it's not really released yet. There are some really good films that are kind of in the Oscar buzz category that just aren't out there right now. So, and that bums me the fuck out, I can tell you right now, but I still came up with a list of 10 really good movies that impacted me this year. And one of the things I'm going to do, which is cool, is I listened to some other top 10 lists, and what bugs me, what is a pet peeve of mine when people bring up films, not just podcasters, but even articles, like the reviews, like, where can I watch this film? Like, sometimes they never say, like, this movie is not released yet and it's coming out in, April 20th or whatever. Or, hey, this movie's available right now and you can go find it on Amazon Prime or something. So in my top 10, I'm going to try to give you guys an idea where you can go find these movies. I'm going to bust that paradigm wide open.
I think that's really, really cool of you to do. I will say up front, I have not done that with my picks.
That's okay.
But looking at my list, I'm pretty sure all of these are widely available on all the different streaming services right now. So I'll just say that. No, like, indies that, like, you can't watch for a year and a half.
Only in a festival.
Festival run are on my list. Mine are all pretty widely accessible. Will, how about yours? Do you have any that viewers might have to wait a while to see?
I've got two that I saw at. I mean, they were virtual festivals. One from like Aspen and one from like, I think, the Hamptons. So I went on like a virtual tour of film festivals across the world this last fall, and two films I think are still pending release, but it'll be out like within the next month.
Aha! Well, there you go. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Relative to when we're recording, they might already be out if you're listening a month from now, 2 months, 3 months, a year from now. So awesome. Well,
it will not take me a month to get this podcast out.
I hope not.
No.
I don't think it would either.
No.
A few days maybe, but you're typically pretty quick. getting this show out the door. So
That's right. And those of you who tuned in live to this podcast tonight to listen are 3 days ahead of the curve. It's like you're in a time machine. You're getting everything 3 days before everybody else.
That's a good point, Jim, because we're about to bring potentially like 30 different like hot films that you've got to see, and you, compared to some of your friends who are listening like a week later in their car or what have you, you're going to have the leg up. You're going to be the one driving those conversations, saying like, oh, yeah, that movie, I already heard from the guys about that one. Watched it this last week. You're behind the power curve. So, yeah, this is your chance to be the movie baron. Take our news and spread it out into the world.
Be the bear.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Be the bear you want to see?
Be the bear? Yeah. Bear the change you want
Can
to
I
see in the
be
world?
a bear, a chub, and a chaser all at the same time then, I guess, since I like so many things? I don't know.
You're a little bit of everything all rolled into one.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off. And Will, let's start with you. What is the 10 slot movie on your list?
All right, the 10 slot movie on my list. This one I can help with the where you can find it. It's on Amazon Prime, so if you have Prime, you can watch it for free right now. The movie is One Night in Miami. One Night in Miami is directed by Regina King, who wonderful actress, and she's done a lot of great work directing television shows. This is her film feature debut, and it's absolutely stellar. The story follows, it's like sort of a fictional night in the 60s where you have Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown. They all gather together over at this like kind of like hotel and the bar and kind of like just sort of that atmosphere, and they share their stories and they sort of clash on a few issues and they come together on a few different issues, specifically involving where their careers and lives are headed versus kind of like where they're at sort of like in the civil rights movement of the time. This is a very like stagey style movie in that you could totally see this played as like a stage production, but that's not an insult. It's actually a testament to just how good Regina King and these specifically these four actors are of making just this wonderful set of like back and forth dialogue, just absolutely compelling and entertaining all the way through. Plus, all of the performers are great, but I want to draw special attention to I am a Hamilton fan, a Ham fan, and Leslie Odom Jr., Burr from Hamilton, plays Sam Cooke in this and does some performances of some Sam Cooke songs, and they are just so delightful. So I am a huge fan of One Night in Miami. And again, you can watch this right now. If you have Amazon Prime, you can just tune into this right now and watch it for free, and you absolutely should. It's a wonderful movie.
Well, this is it's no secret to people who to us and to people, maybe some people who listen, that you probably see the vast amount of movie, a much vaster amount of movies than like Brad or I see in a given year, which is fine but this is one that's kind of been on my radar that I just haven't had the time to catch up with. I think this was kind of a late year release. Well, couple month.
It's not been out terribly long in the grand scheme of things. I forget the exact release date, but yeah, I mean, within the last month and change.
There are great movies that I haven't seen through no fault of my own because they're not released, but there are some great movies out there that I have just kind of been a little lax on and haven't caught up with yet, but it's definitely one that I want to see. Because I love the music of Sam Cooke, so just hearing you say that Zeodom is going, singing some Sam Cooke stuff, I'm down.
There you go. Sounds like a strong. I haven't seen it, but as always, I start making a list of films I need to see after I hear your guys' list. Because, Will, I don't know, you saw like 300 movies or more last year. Jim, you saw like 150 or more. I think I saw total 36 movies last year. It was my lowest year for movies, so I haven't seen as much. Watched a whole fuck ton of TV. Quarantining. I did.
Quarantine TV.
Quarantine TV. That's
TV.
right. So awesome
Yeah.
for putting that film on the old radar. Jim, what was your number 10 slot film?
Okay, mine is one of those films that did come out in 2019, but I wasn't able to find it available on streaming till somewhat into this year. And it's a Swedish psychological thriller / horror movie that kind of knocked my socks off when I saw it. It's called Coco Da. And it's, man, those Swedes are like crazy. I mean, I don't know if this is indicative of a lot of Swedish filmmaking, but if it is, give me more of that Swedish psychological horror. It's basically this young couple that goes on this camping trip after experiencing a tragedy, and from there it just goes bonkers, horrific. The things that start happening to them by outside influences. I saw a little bit of David Lynch in this. That kind of that absurd. Just kind of that absurd WTF is going on stuff in this movie. But as a horror, I'm Brad. You're a little weird when it comes to comedies. You gotta have a weird funny bone. You said I have a weird horror bone. Horror bone. Is that a
horror bone? Is that what you said?
Horror bone.
Oh, we are well aware, Jim.
Sure.
Some of the usual fare, like Oculus and the I don't know, Last House on the Left kind of stuff is fine, but I kind of go for the real out there stuff, and Coco Da is one. You can find it on Amazon Prime, Vudu, YouTube right now. I recommend going and finding this one. It's not probably going to show up on your recommends, but if you do search for it, I think it's worth searching out.
This is a really good pick, Jim. This is one of those movies that does not hold your hand at all through it. It makes you work for it, but as you spend more time with it and sort of peel back some of the mysteries and some of the things there, it's very rewarding and also very poignant in places too.
And yes, unsettling and poignant as well. Yeah,
unsettling and poignant. That's an
they don't always go
combination,
together. Right? Yeah. But it works. Yeah,
that's like a butter and pineapple sandwich. Like,
right.
It doesn't sound like it would go together. Maybe it does. I don't know.
Wait a minute. You've never had a butter and pineapple sandwich, Brad?
It's like pineapple and pizza. Like,
I'm a weirdo, I guess.
We have those all the time growing up here in Texas. We literally don't. Please don't get any bad ideas about Texans.
I was like, am I going to see a pineapple and butter sandwich food truck next time we're there for in-person South by Southwest film?
Maybe, but I know we're all going to be showing. If there is at all a Facebook page advertising those, our phones are listening to us, and we're going to be getting a bunch of targeted ads after this.
Oh goodness, I would not put it past social networks to do that. I'm just saying. But all right, cool. Well, Jim, thank you so much for that pick as well. It's probably worth saying, folks, by the way, this is going to be a bit of a longer show than normal. We'll see how it goes. We may have 10 movies to get through if we all have the same movies on our list. I don't think that's the case. So, but anywhere from 10 to 30 movies probably we're going to be talking about. So,
yeah,
if you need to pause in the middle of the show and come back, if you're listening on live, digital tape delay, that's fine. If you're listening live, maybe you'll hang with us for the duration. We'll see. My number 10 pick is a film that we saw. Obviously it was in 2020. I think it was May-ish when this movie came out. Yes, I just checked. This film stars Will Forte, Mark Wahlberg, Jason Isaacs. It is an animated film about that lovable pup named Scooby-Doo. Believe it or not, Scoob with an exclamation point made my list in my number 10 slot. When we saw this, we were just a couple months into quarantine. Seeing movies from your home was kind of a brand new thing. There'd only been a few sort of big releases back then. I remember watching this with you, babe. We made popcorn. I think we watched it with Sam. I think Sam was over.
Maybe.
Part of our quarantine. And I was really struggling in May. That's when I really started hitting that mental wall. And of course, now we're 8 months past that. But this movie was it was a bright spot back then. Watching it again now, I mean, I haven't watched it since then. I don't know if my feelings would change, but I've been keeping a list of films that I think would make my list, and there was nothing really that edged Scoob out for me. I had a couple honorable mentions that came pretty close, but this adorable animated film follows Shaggy and Scoob when they first meet each other, and then we see them as adults with the rest of the gang doing their thing. Super fun. Had a cool soundtrack, had a cool setup. Jason Isaacs, who's my favorite actor to play a villain ever anymore, was really great, and this is Dick Dastardly. So that's my number 10 because it made me happy in quarantine.
This was a really gutsy one, not the pick, but the movie itself, because this was very early on, grand scheme of things, into pandemic, and a lot of movies were sort of playing the I don't know what I'm going to do game, kind of like, no, and sort of like backing out and rescheduling and pushing back. And this was one of those few early blockbusters that decided to just go for it and try the sort of be a pioneer of the $19.99 like watch the theatrical experience live in your own home type thing, and I'm appreciative for that. I'm very appreciative for that. I think that those first few films that sort of like ventured forward opened up the doors for a lot of other films to make a similar move.
It's interesting that you mention that, Will, because Mary Kay Meadows, who we love and adore on this show, says, "Oh wow, Scoob was in 2020." LOL, feels like so much longer ago. Damn Rona. That's true. I feel like I've lived 5 years since I saw this movie. But so many films are coming out this way now. In fact, we got a big release schedule of films like Godzilla vs. Kong that are coming directly to HBO Max. I mean, it'll be in theaters too, but like the future of movie releases has forever changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of in line with Mary's comment. Like, this is one of those ones where you're getting ready to put your list together. You don't really have an idea. You just know you've seen a bunch of great movies. So you go through your list of movies you've seen for the year, and you're like, oh my God, this was the year we saw Scoob. Like, I have to consider this. And like, it's strange. The movies that maybe you kind of like put on the back burner or forgot about, until you look at that list and it comes up and you're like, oh yeah. And then there's the ones you come across and you come across a title and you're like, what the fuck was that movie? I don't remember that movie at all. And then you have to read like a note you made or something. And then it's like, oh yeah, it's that movie.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to our number 9s, Jordan Riley, long-time friend of the show, has a question for us. Speaking of Godzilla, he says, who do you guys think wins, Kong or Godzilla? What are your hot takes, guys?
Who do we think is going to end up winning in the movie, or who would we in our movie?
I would say in the movie.
Movie.
What's your prediction?
Okay. I think this is going to be one of those classic superhero style like clashes where the first 2/3 of the movie is, who's going to win, Kong versus Godzilla, and both of them sort of get ahead of the other one a little bit. But one unforeseen threat that maybe isn't in the trailers yet, or maybe
in the title,
is going to like pop up, and they're going to have to unite together. So I think the winner is Godzilla and King Kong as they beat Mecha Godzilla. I don't know.
Godzilla versus Kong, Dawn of Kaiju Justice.
I'm right with you. I have my own kind of ideas about what may happen in the movie, but I don't think you're going to see like one monster totally destroy another and never see the other one again. It's not going to probably go down that way. I mean, that's not good for franchises, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be something like they'll be united to defeat some kind of foe at the end. I'd be surprised if it didn't. they could subvert that expectation. That would be wild, but I don't know if it's going to happen.
I mean, spoilers for Godzilla King of the Monsters, but there was a stinger at the end with Charles Dance. I'll say no more. Tywin Lannister himself has a bit of kaiju leftovers, and he may do some weird things. So I'm thinking we're gonna get like a cyborg Godzilla or a clone Godzilla who's like fucking shit up, and then the real Godzilla and Kong have to unite to save the day. But I do think Godzilla is going to give Kong a fucking beat down before that happens. So I can't wait for it. William Durst's Godzilla Kong fist bump. I mean, I don't know if we'll see that exactly, but I mean, we'll get some kind of like equivalent. Like Godzilla's going to pick up Kong and like swing him around and throw him into Mecha Godzilla. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So good times. All right, our number 9 movies. Let's
go
to Will. What do you got?
All right. So my number 9 movie was one that I saw fairly early in the year, written and directed by Kitty Green, starring Julia Garner. It is The Assistant. The Assistant is a very simple story in its, like the elevator pitch to it, that definitely hits a lot harder than it might initially sound. It follows Julia Garner plays this assistant to a powerful, like Hollywood style, like executive, right? Kind of like working within the industry at least. And she and everyone in the office, everyone that kind of works there, all have their own different routines. And of course, she's the one who has to get the coffee, make the copies, set up the meetings, place the unfortunate phone calls that need to be made. She has a lot to do, and she's given absolutely zero respect. We get to see through the course of this one day. It just follows her from the time she opens up to the time that she closes down at the end of the
long fucking day, right?
Yeah, it's a long day. Just a lot of the kind of like microaggressions that she deals with, when she and her even the other like the male coworkers in her kind of assistant pool, when someone has to like make the phone call that's not a fun phone call to make, it sort of falls on her. So this is a movie that follows all of those little like not even little, but like all of those aggressions and microaggressions that someone follows. But it never veers into like melodrama. It never veers into like heavily maudlin like scores as it does it. And it makes it all the more frustrating in a good way to realize that this is just the type of injustice that people experience all day, every day, all throughout the world. It's The Assistant, and it is very, very good. It's less than 90 minutes, so it's a easy enough movie to try to like watch in your schedule. And it's on I don't know if it's on free rental anywhere, but I know it, like all of the like the VOD streaming sites, I know it was there. So you can rent The Assistant right now, and you absolutely should. It is so damn good.
That's one I did catch up, Will, and it was a consideration for my list, and I will not spoil anything. I don't know if it made I can't say if it made my list yet or not, but we'll see.
Who knows?
You can't say.
That was a long work day. That's all I know. It's like, oh my God, I've had long work days, but this woman is knocking it out for a long work day.
All right. Well, thanks so much for that pick. Jim, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is a little documentary that I discovered. I guess you could call it documentary, or I don't know. Is it a documentary? Called Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets. This one is about, it's kind of a documentary about the Roaring '20s. And you just patron for the night.
Hey, Jim. Hold tight for a second. You're freezing for us, and we lost your audio.
Oh no.
Okay, I think you're back.
Am I back?
I think you're back. Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right.
Just back up if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Beginning.
Yeah.
There you go.
So my number 9 is a movie, kind of a documentary that feels like a documentary, but I think when you dig into it a little more, there's some things going on in this movie that might be actors, might not be actors. The movie's called Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets. This is another one that you can find for rental on Amazon Prime, YouTube, Vudu, Apple TV. It's about a Las Vegas dive bar called the Roaring Twenties on its last night in business, and it's closing down. This is it, kind of a last hurrah in this bar. And we get to know some of the regulars and patrons. I love this movie because it feels very authentic, and also it has this sense of melancholic, like sadness running through it that I really loved. And you get to know these characters. That, I don't hang out in dive bars very much, but it seems like think of it like a more down and dirty real life Cheers, if you will. And I love this for that. So check it out. It's called Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets. It's only like an hour and a half. Some great character work in here. But go seek it out on Amazon Prime, YouTube, Vudu.
And when I saw the rental price on this one is very like sometimes it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna rent all of these movies that these guys talk about, but they're like $5 each. Unless I missed something on this one, I think this one was like $1.99 rental too. So it's
wow, yeah,
or at least on Amazon. So it's like, $2 for a super enjoyable movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can't beat that with a stick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for your number 9 pick, babe. Making way, my number 9 pick is a film that we saw all the way back in September, which still feels like 3 years ago to me. But here's the IMDb summary. Successful author Veronica Henley finds herself trapped in a horrifying reality and must uncover the mind-bending mystery before it's too late. This film stars the amazing, wonderful, beautiful, phenomenal Janelle Monáe. And this film, of course, is Antebellum, which, by the way, I've been doing some research on my list while we've been talking. I can now tell you where to stream or rent or buy these things. Antebellum is available to rent or buy on all the various platforms that are out there. It's 99 cents right now on Prime Video. Wow. And I'd say that's $1
automatic
well spent. Yeah, for sure. This movie is fantastic. I don't want to give too much away because there's kind of like a twist.
There's a huge twists and reveals. Yep.
Yeah. But this movie just blew my socks off in so many different ways. It's kind of a look at slavery era South politics
from the inside.
Powerful women doing amazing powerful women things. God, it's so hard to dance around this. I'm just gonna say this movie kicks ass. I really think you should see it. It's got an awesome message. For me, this is one of the big standouts for me from 2020. So Antebellum, starring Janelle Monáe, $1, Amazon Prime. Do it.
Yeah, this one was, like a really good surprise, a really cool surprise to me, and was considered for my list. But I can remember being blown away by certain parts of this movie. I can remember the beginning and the end were kind of crazy. That's all I'll say, without giving too much away. And the performance by Janelle Monáe, if you don't know how multi-talented that woman is, check out this movie. Because if you only know her from her music, check out her acting chops in this.
Yeah, Janelle Monáe is a star. She's been someone that I've it's been over a decade since I put her CD in my car. Like, remember when you could put CDs in cars? My new cars don't have fucking CD players. But I remember driving around blasting like Tightrope, blasting Cold War, and seeing her transition from that to short form music video / short film to feature films. It's just been like an amazing transition, and I can't wait to see. Yeah, she's one of those people now who it's like I can't wait to see what she does next.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Be prepared to get surprised.
You could say that Janelle is Monet.
Monet.
Monet. Okay.
Money, 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 money.
Monet.
Yeah, Monet.
I adore you guys. All right, let's move on down the list to our number 8s. Will, what you got?
All right. So my number 8. The title is Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. It is a film written and directed by Eliza Hittman, and it follows these 2 teenage girls, one of which is pregnant, and they live in this smaller, like, Pennsylvania town, and because
Suburbs.
of and it's because of some of the United States has some pretty shitty archaic laws around how we're allowed to like legislate women's bodies, and because of those, and because of just the lack of help and lack of resources that are in her area, they decide to go to New York City so that they could try to find what her medical options are, up to and including abortion. And the film follows these 2 friends as they are exploring New York City and trying to get her to an increasingly difficult number of appointments, and having to deal with some very real, very, very real stakes for someone who's, still very young. There is a scene in this movie. There's a lot of great scenes in this movie. There's one specifically, the scene that the title draws its name from. She's being asked some questions, and never, rarely, sometimes, always are the answers. And the camera locks onto her. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't let us move away as she has to answer some incredibly uncomfortable questions. And just like with the assistant, it makes you realize just how difficult it must be for people to have to go through this when we legislate against their own health. This is such a great movie. I think Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always is one of those films that's was an early highlight of the year for me. Came out sort of like April-ish and has hovered around the top of my list ever since. Never really budging out of my top 10, and I think that says something. The type of movie that you still think about 9 months later. 9 months later, it's still just as powerful as it was then. And this one is available on streaming. You can find it like on Amazon. It's on VOD rental, so not for Prime, but you can rent it for money.
All right. Well, hey, Hemstart has a question in the chat. He says, how often do you recommend someone watch this movie? Never, rarely, sometimes, or always?
I have 2 answers for that.
My answer on that one is always. I think that this is a type of film that I think everyone would benefit from watching this film, because this is either your lived experience or the lived experience of other people that you should be aware of. But told through a entertaining and touching story.
Yeah, let's take one of those answers off the table right now. Never is not. Never as it does not apply to this movie. It's a movie that should be seen. And it would depend, like if you're a movie rewatcher who likes to watch movies that makes them feel good about, whatever, then I would say maybe the answer might be rarely, but at least see it once. You know what I mean? But if you're someone who likes to watch movies to like just immerse yourself in like great performances and a really good story, then I would say always. I would say I'd say definitely always. I'd agree with Will on that. It's hard drama. I would say that. It's and some of it's tough. Yep.
Well, thank you for answering Hammy's well-crafted punny question. Jim, what is your number 8?
Okay, my number 8 is a Netflix movie that we saw this year. It's a remake of a groundbreaking off-Broadway stage play and 1970 LGBT gay-themed film called The Boys in the Band. And this one was made for Netflix. Basically, they did a revival of the show, I think, on Broadway. took all those great actors, put them together, and put them on a stage, and they basically filmed the whole thing for a Netflix movie, and I loved it. I will admit I hadn't seen anything to do with the boys in the band previously. I had not seen the stage play. I think we reviewed this on the show, did we not?
We did.
We did,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think what I loved about this was it transported this audience back to like a time in the late 60s, which was pre-HIV and AIDS epidemic, by the way. That, yes, it hits many gay stereotypes, but I still found it fascinating, like imagining what it would have been like seeing this play put in front of you as a gay person in the 1960s or early 70s. Kind of an awakening and being kind of out front and in the limelight, in the mainstream, kind of. Also, Jim Parsons chews scene after scene in this film, and that was a huge eye opener for me. He was an actor that I know had done a lot of TV and stuff. I don't think I had really seen him in any movies before that, but I'm like, okay, this guy can be good. So I want to see more. But yeah, The Boys in the Band, it's on Netflix. No reason at all not to see this, especially within our community. I will say, check it out. A great character drama stage play about what gay life was like in the late 60s.
Jim, this is another one that has that sort of like One Night in Miami, like a sort of a stagey feel to it. And this one, of course, because it's an adaptation of the stage play, but it's a film. They could have gone a bunch of different routes with this one, but they really stayed true to the kind of the confined to one room, kind of confined to one place, confined to one set aesthetic. And for something about these types of movies, these and Hamilton, I just watched In and of Itself on Hulu, like these things that are either stage productions or sort of like feel like they could be, really resonated with me as someone who has been in the same locale for straight up months on end. I don't know. I just felt myself more drawn to these, like making the best of a limited location style films. So great pick.
Yeah, definitely. I think you kind of forget that, one location, one scene, you can do so many different things with sometimes. Like, we see all these different movies that take you to 50 different places, Fast and Furious movies. But it's like sometimes just being grounded in one spot lets the character drama really come out and flow. Granted, that's not what the Fast and Furious movies are trying to be, but I'm just saying, like,
no,
I appreciate when films like Boys in the Band sort of replicate that Broadway feel, right? Or stage play feel, the way they're able to do those things.
I love that analogy, Brad. Like, whereas the Fast and Furious franchise builds its characters one street race and car wreck at a time, but the Boys in the Band builds its characters one gay drama dust up at a time.
I got you, fam. Yes, totally.
Okay, yeah.
All right, number 8 for me. Here's the description. A high school boy who's run away to Tokyo befriends a girl who appears to be able to manipulate the weather. Now, Will, before you say anything, I know this came out in 2019. We were not able to see this film, unfortunately, until 2020 here in Arizona. Boo, hiss. But this film is available to stream right now on HBO Max, or you can buy and rent on other platforms. And the film, of course, is an anime film called Weathering with You. And this is another one of those movies. I think we saw this, Jim, before quarantine started. I think we saw this in January of 2020. That's what I have in my notes anyway. So it was right before everything sort of kicked off and happened. I remember seeing this film on the big screen with you, babe. And one of the things that really stood out to me about this film is anime has always done a great job at animating weather. But because the weather in this film is almost a character unto itself, the things that the animators and sound designers and editors were able to do with rain and thunderstorms and water effects in this film was just nothing short of amazing. And when I say anime, there may be some people who, like me, are not necessarily like huge anime fans. When you think about anime, maybe like Sailor Moon craziness comes to mind. And I'm not saying Sailor Moon is bad, but this movie is not, it's not like a superhero anime, even though there's like a weather control question mark element. This is very much like a character drama
Relationship.
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of comedy, but it's not like oh, a teardrop falls down the face and they're laughing so hard that like tears are flying out of their eyes like Niagara Falls. Funny anime. This is like Grave of the Fireflies character depth anime. I love this
Your
movie
Name
very
with
much.
another one. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Really fantastic music in this film. When we saw it, of course, we saw it subtitled, but the voice acting in original Japanese was just killer. I couldn't understand what they were saying through the words, but I mean, I could read. But I mean, you know, even when someone is speaking in another language that you don't understand, but just hearing the emotion in their voice, you can understand what they're feeling. I think is incredibly powerful. And this movie did that for me in spades. So even if traditionally you're not a super anime fan, but you like character dramas and you like beautiful, pretty things, Weathering with You, HBO Max, go stream it right now.
You know, you mentioned Your Name. These are both Makoto Shinkai films. He also did 5 centimeters per second. He's and his whole thing for you mentioned like this. If you're not an anime fan, you might still enjoy this. I almost think that this is, it's anime in style, but I like the tone of it is almost much more of like a Nicholas Sparks ish, like young adult style, like like friendship type movie. I think that's definitely where it finds its groove. And you will you were good for picking it this year, Brad, because even though it's listed as a 2019 film, it didn't actually have a US release until January of this year. So
just
100% counts for this year.
Woohoo!
Yeah, the 12th movie we watched.
There you go. All right.
Yeah. So pretty much at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, let's move on to our number 7s. Will, what have you got?
All right. So this is going to be my weirdest pick. But you're going to have to just go with me on this one. This was a film that I debated whether or not to put on the list because very similarly, I saw it at the end of 2019. But it wasn't released for people to see until January on Shudder. The movie is called Dogs Don't Wear Pants. Dogs Don't Wear Pants is a Finnish movie, I believe. It's from Finland. And it follows this guy named Juha who he loses his wife. Like, she dies in, like, she drowns. And that's the opening of the film, and that whole shot is just absolutely like one of the most beautiful and tragic and most well shot things that I've seen on screen this year. But that's not what the film is about. The film is about him years later. He's got a teenage daughter, and he's trying to kind of get back out into the world, but he's just emotionally numb and shut down and cannot connect with people at all. He has this chance encounter that leads him to a dominatrix named Mona. And through their relationship, in which, she becomes his dominatrix, he starts to experience feelings again and sort of come to grips with how he's dealt with things. And she starts to learn a few things about herself as well. But they also end up clashing against each other in terms of like their own boundaries and sort of the way that they view their relationships. It's not always healthy. It's sometimes a little bit toxic. And it's a very interesting exploration of BDSM as both something that can be curative and a way to sort of like tap into the ways that we deal with trauma. It also looks at some of the sort of like the negative aspects of what happens when you transpose upon someone the ideals that you need them to be as opposed to who they are as an actual human being. It's a wonderful film. It is not a family film, very obviously, but it's on Shudder. It's Dogs Don't Wear Pants, and it's just one of the best movies of this year.
So not 50 Shades of Grey then. This is Dogs Don't Wear Pants.
Look, it sucks because 50 Shades of Grey is like the BDSM movie that people talk about, but you've got things like Secretary, Dogs Don't Wear Pants, The Duke of Burgundy, which are much better films in the same subject. Like if ever you like, if anyone, this is my big takeaway from everyone that's watching this. If anyone's ever like, ooh, I want, like it's like a BDSM movie, like 50 Shades of Grey, stop them and refer them to one of these three movies instead, because they're just way better films about the subject. But yeah, Dogs Don't Wear Pants. It's free if you have Shudder. And you should have Shudder because it's just one of the best streaming platforms out there. So go track it down.
So I have to ask, Will, because we watched 50 Shades of Grey this weekend with our quarantine.
It broke our TV.
Just for funsies, because they hadn't seen it before. And it broke our TV. Our TV stopped working. We had to get a new TV. Is Dogs Don't Wear Pants going to break our television?
I will guarantee you that if you watch this movie with a fully functioning television, as long as you're still within warranty on your television, don't do anything destructive, and disclaimer, this movie will not at all break your television.
Well, thank goodness. That's a relief to hear.
I think I saw that pull line on the poster. Yeah. Dogs Don't Wear Pants will not break your television.
Well, there we go. We got to watch it.
Just don't watch this movie if you think that it's like Dogs Don't Wear Pants. That could be like a cutesy animated movie to watch with my kids. It's not. It's not.
Clifford the Red Dog and Dogs Don't Wear Pants.
Oh, God. Oh, God. The mental images that are happening right now. All right. Hey, Jim, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is another film that came out this year. It's an animated film called Wolfwalkers. I don't know if we'll talk about this later. I have a feeling it might come up later. So I'll keep it short. This is an animated adventure fantasy from Ireland about a girl and her father who, while tasked to rid the countryside of wolves, discover a new world that this girl is drawn into. I think what I loved about this movie was I did really get into the animation style. I thought it was beautiful in spots. I loved some of the characterization. I forget the character's name, unfortunately, Will. Not the main girl, but her friend. Brad, I don't know if you remember either. But I loved that character. I just loved the spirit of that character. I love that it felt like a fable. This was basically a fable laid out in a movie style, and I love that. Also, I can really get into the messages of wildlife and eco preservation that were woven into this fable. So I think there's a lot here. I think people who love animation, who love kind of the adventure fantasy stuff, good character stories will like it. Yeah, I'm going to say Wolfwalkers. I think it's on Apple TV Plus right now. For if you want to go watch it, if you have Apple TV Plus, watch it. If not, then as soon as we're vaccinated, you can come over our house. As soon as everybody's vaccinated, you can come over our house and watch it.
This movie will also not break your television.
No.
I'm going to hold my comments for later in the episode.
Awesome.
All right.
Bank the time.
Bank. All right. Well, then, in that case, Jim, I'll just say that I like this movie. It didn't make my list. I didn't love this movie, but I really, really appreciate that you loved it as much as you did. Being able to watch it on the projector, 120-inch screen was kind of a cool experience. This film has some really incredible visuals to it. Its animation style is really interesting. So, plus, what's his face? Sean Bean. How can you go wrong?
Right.
You know, so I'm really glad to hear that this
Ned
movie made
Stark.
it. That's right. That's right.
Careful, Ned.
Careful, you shit. Anyway, all right. So number 7 film for me is a film that you can stream on Netflix right now, and the tagline, not tagline, summary of this film from IMDb is this: an urgent phone call pulls a Yale law student back to his Ohio hometown, where he reflects on 3 generations of family history and his own future. This film was directed by Ron Howard and stars Amy Adams and Glenn Close, both of which I feel give fucking amazing performances in this film. Gabriel Basso is in this film as well, who I think did an excellent job. Um, Growing up in small town America and having a lot of family from the South, even though this film takes place in Ohio, there's family from Kentucky. They're kind of, it blends together. I resonated with this film quite a bit. It's another one of those like big character slash family dramas. The film deals with themes of poverty and, education or lack thereof, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. It's a pretty heavy thing. It's based on a book by J.D. Vance, and that book is based on JD's life. I know there's some controversy, sort of around that, but I feel like this is a quality film from Ron Howard that not enough people are watching. In fact, I was talking to a friend the other day, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, have you watched Hillbilly Elegy yet?" And he's like, "Oh, I've seen that pop up on Netflix about 100 times, but like, I don't want to watch something about buck teeth people."
Oh God, yeah. See, that's part of this film's problem. Good pick, Brad.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this film quite a bit too, and I know it might be one of those films that got attention for maybe not all positive reasons, but I will say that I enjoyed it, and you put you put hillbilly in the title of any movie, and it's going to turn some people right off for a bunch of different reasons, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's bias or people see that as a derogatory term for people who live in the South. It's a loaded word at this point. So you put that in your title of your movie, and I think you'll lose a bit of audience right off the bat. But I think it's a really good pick, Brad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you think so, and I agree. I think those are all big reasons that people don't tune in. So this episode is basically one giant plugs section. So if you have a Netflix subscription or you're gonna get one, this would be a good film for you to check out. I loved it to pieces. So, all right, let's move on. An hour into the show, we're not even halfway through our list yet. Oh my goodness. Will, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is on Amazon Prime, and I think that it definitely got the performance of the year for me. I'm going to say that at least the lead actor performance of the year for me. The movie is Sound of Metal. It stars Riz Ahmed with co-starring Olivia Cook, and he plays this heavy metal drummer. Right, they're like a kind of a 2-piece like rock band, just sort of like touring and playing. And one day he notices that his hearing is going out, and it's going out rapidly. And he has to come to grips with the fact that he is losing this one major sense, while also coming to grips with the fact that it's going to change his life in some pretty profound ways. This is a character who had previously overcome a drug addiction before the beginning of the movie, and there's a worry that like maybe he'll relapse, or maybe this will impact his sobriety overall, and he has to come to grips with all of this. The performance, like I mentioned, is just one of the best of the years. When he needs to like kind of tap into like whatever the big emotion is, he can do that, but also so much of it is just watching him sort of sort through things in real time and deny what's happening or accept what's happening and just all of that. But the other big star of this movie is the sound design. all throughout the film as his hearing is impacted. The sound design lets you stay inside of his POV. So there's times where things might sound jarbled, or where things start to like mute and dull out a little bit, or you might hear just a little portion of it. And especially when you're following that character as he's trying to understand something while not being able to, like, understand it because his hearing's gone, you get to live in that with you. Sound of Metal is so good. It's so good. It's one of the few films that I've revisited this year. I've been sort of like on this, like, you track down new movies, you want to watch new movies, and and you can sometimes forget to rewatch things. But I revisited this one just a few weeks ago because I loved it so much. Again, and it's on Amazon Prime. One of the best movies of the year. You can watch for free right now.
Yeah, really, really good film, Will. And like you said, great performance. The sound design was unique. I mean, you don't see this like a movie that has as its central character somebody who's lost their hearing, especially somebody who's recently lost their hearing and is dealing with that loss and figuring that out. I really love this movie. It just missed my list though. Yeah.
All right. Well, sounds like another super strong pick, Will. Thank you so much. Jim?
Mine, yeah, my number, this 6 or 7?
Six.
What is
This
6?
Is 6.
Oh yeah, my number 6 is another 2019 film that we didn't get to see until early 2020, and that is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This one did not make my list for 2019 because I hadn't seen it yet, and I went and checked just to make sure I wasn't double dipping on films. This one's currently available now since it's been out almost a year. Hulu, YouTube, I think Apple TV Plus, Vudu. This is really just two lovely performances, wonderful, like artfully told and gorgeously shot and presented friendship/romance between a woman who's intended to be married off by her wealthy family and the artist that's hired to paint her portrait, and seeing how that relationship develops, how they kind of work to break down each other's walls to form this relationship. And this one is, as many of my films are, I looked on the next 5 films, is a crier. Meaning, like, it gets my eyes wet when I watch this film. Just a beautiful film, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. If you haven't seen it, LGBT themes, definitely worth catching up with.
Love this pick, Jim. I'd seen this one right at the end of last year, so it snuck in under the wire for me on that last year's list, and it would have been my number 1 if I hadn't seen Parasite that year. It's that damn good a pick. Right. So 100% co-sign. Watch that movie.
Yeah, definitely a really good one. This is another one of those films, babe, that we saw just before everything happened, right? I think we saw this in the upstairs theater at the Loft. I remember cuddling with you on the couches while we were watching this. And just an incredibly, incredibly poignant film, beautifully shot, some great character moments and drama. Yeah, very, very solid, beautiful love story. Plus, great art.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too reductive, but I mean, I look at this as kind of a companion piece to something like Brokeback Mountain. I kind of see it similar in themes, similarly wonderfully constructed. So, but definitely worth seeing.
Call Me by Your Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yes.
Call Me by Your Flame.
Call Me by Your Brokeback Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, great pick. Number 6 for me is a film that I suspect we may talk about elsewhere on this episode. I don't know for sure, but possibly. This film is a documentary, believe it or not. Documentaries don't typically make my lists, but this one did. And Jim, this was a documentary you turned me on to, as well as a few other folks on social media who were clamoring over this. The synopsis is: a filmmaker forges an unusual friendship with an octopus living in a South African kelp forest. learning as the animal shares the mysteries of her world. This film is, of course, My Octopus Teacher, which is streaming on Netflix right now. Jim, when you were originally telling me about this movie, I think you were like, yeah, it's this documentary about a guy who follows an octopus around underwater, and it made me cry. And I'm like, how the fuck would that make you cry? What? That I was sick, down and out with a really bad sinus infection. I was just laying on the couch and I was surfing Netflix looking for something to watch and it popped up. And I'm like, you know what? I'm probably going to fall asleep anyway. I'll just put it on. And I was enthralled through the whole thing. In fact, I sat up rather than laid down. And I was enraptured through the whole thing. It's beautiful. The relationship that the filmmaker has with this octopus, not a love relationship, obviously. It's like a you know, just a weird friendship between man and an octopus. He learns a lot about, her life and her world and the dangers of her world and the brevity of life under the ocean and it's pretty fucking powerful. I'm not going to say too much more because again, I think this may come up again later. But for a documentary to hit number 6 on my list, I think is a, a pretty big boon as documentaries go, and this one in particular. Hamstrat says, I give this movie 8 tentacles up. So there you go. Some more love for My Octopus Teacher. Again, it's streaming on Netflix right now. Check it out.
I'm going to save my comments for 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm crying, and number 2, it may come up again.
I knew it. I knew it on both levels. So.
Yeah. And while this one didn't make my list, I think it's great that it made y'all's. It's a very, very it's a very good film. It's touching and gentle, but it's also very tense in places. Like, this for what is ultimately like kind of like a gentle, like, just sort of like a stroll of a movie. It's also a edge of your seat white knuckle film in places. And I think it's really cool that it's able to do both of those without giving me too much whiplash.
Agreed. For sure. All right. Well, we are officially halfway through our lists. Although I will say this, every year we get to this point where it's like, we're an hour and 20 minutes into the show. We're only halfway through our list. But then we start converging. We start having movies like overlap lists and so I'm very curious at this point. I know My Octopus Teacher is obviously on your list, Jim. It sounds like. I'm so pumped to find out what else we may have in common. We will see. But our top 5 officially kicks off now. Will, what was your 5th most beloved movie of 2020?
Yeah, we'll save a little bit of time because Jim already talked about Wolfwalkers, which was my favorite animated film of the year and one of the best animated films that I've seen in several years. He already talked a little bit about what it was, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what it was to me. This is a movie about a lot of different things. You definitely mentioned sort of like the importance of environmentalism. That's definitely kind of a theme through this one, of cultures sort of like learning from one another and combining in a way that still adheres to those cultures. I think that's important. This is one of the most beautiful looking things that I've ever watched. This is done predominantly with hand-drawn animation. This studio also did Song of the Sea and Secret of Kells, which are also top-notch films. And as the animation follows, like as the wolves are running, you get to see like this sort of like blur pencil line type thing with this sort of like yellow goldish overlay that happens in places. It's beautiful. It's breathtaking animation. It's it elevates the craft both in terms of how it looks, the story that it's being told, and how those two things are married. That's what film is for me, combining those wonderful visuals with that fantastic story. Also features some amazing music by Aurora, who is just one of my absolute favorite artists, and they use a great track from her here. It's on Apple TV Plus. Wolfwalkers is the goods.
And
all right.
Second it again, Will. Thank you.
You can't second it again when you
I can.
firsted it.
I firsted it again.
All right. Well, that speaks to the power of this movie. Well, excellent pick. Jim, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is a big movie, probably the biggest movie on my list, maybe, I'm guessing. I don't know. It's a Pixar animated adventure fantasy film called Onward, that came out this year. Man, I have a feeling this one might come up again later, so I probably won't spend a lot of time on it. Um, Disney Pixar puts out some great movies, and I think the ones they do the best are original stories that are not sequel or like comic universe movies. We can argue about that later, but I think, and this falls into that. This is an original story that talks about family, the importance of family, and even in an unconventional family. Although, I mean, in this movie, what might seem like an unconventional family is a conventional family for a lot of us, right? I was brought up in a single parent family. Many others were. And so I totally related to the two brothers in this movie, which the movie was primarily about their relationship as they go on these adventures and journeys. Really good animation, a really good balance of fun, action, adventure, and some emotional beats that really kind of hit home, and they hit home in a very honest way. They don't feel super forced. They kind of sneak up on you, and you're like, before you know it, your eyes are leaking again. So this might be like one of my favorite Pixar films in a long, long time. So Onward, it's available on Disney Plus, of course. Check it out if you haven't already, but I know a lot of people have.
This is another one that was very special because of where it fell in the pandemic timeline. I mentioned Scoob being one of the first ones. I believe Onward was the first one, kind of across those gates of saying, hey, instead of pushing this back, we're going to try out some home streaming and see what happens. And I think it was a gamble that paid off, at least for this film, in that, it gave us something to sort of keep us together during those first really rough months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you for your number 5 pick, babe. My number 5 pick is a Amazon original film. You can stream it on Amazon Prime right now, Prime Video. And the synopsis of this film is, in 1973, when Frank Bledsoe and his 18-year-old niece Beth take a road trip from Manhattan to Creekville, South Carolina for the family patriarch's funeral, they're unexpectedly joined by Frank's lover. This movie is called Uncle Frank. And Jim, you already have an LGBTQ plus film on your list, Boys in the Band. That may come up again later. I don't know. But I was really, really happy to see a film where Boys in the Band was very much, an ensemble cast. There's many characters, many things going on. Without spoiling, Uncle Frank is a much smaller film, starring Paul Bettany, Sophia Lillis. The story is more self-contained. It's more intimate, I feel, watching this character, Frank Bledsoe, sort of, back in the 1970s, being a gay man was not as an accepted thing as it is today in the 2020s. And even in the 2020s, in some places in America, it's not even remotely an accepted thing. But, seeing someone 40 plus years ago, like, going through the same things in a way that I went through, like, growing up and coming to terms with my sexuality and my family, like, meeting my first boyfriend and me being terrified of that and what was going to happen, like, it's just it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. There's themes of alcohol and substance abuse here, as well as family connection, and like when you have this thing about yourself that you think your family is not going to be okay with, or they're not going to be okay with, you sort of put up a curtain, right? Like, you start withholding from everybody, and at first it's your family, and then maybe it becomes your friends, and then maybe even you start withholding from yourself and you start hating yourself, and seeing that curtain start to flutter and maybe come down, question mark, to yourself, maybe to others, is a powerful, powerful thing. So I don't want to say too much more about this film because I don't want to spoil anything. I don't know if this made your guys' list at all, but if you have Prime Video, you can go watch this right now. Go do it. It's super good. It's included with Prime. You don't have to pay anything extra.
Did not quite make my list. It's on my honorable mentions collection of movies that we'll also record. But I did love this film, especially like the relationship between Beth and her uncle Frank. I thought was really well done. Also, it kind of, not only what did it take place kind of in the 70s, but it also reached back further into Frank's childhood, back to, I don't know, the 40s maybe or 50s. What it was, if being gay with a secret is hard in the 70s, it was even that much harder probably in the 40s and 50s. And this movie, I think, explored that a little bit. And it was great seeing Paul Bettany in a serious dramatic role as well. So
I mean, he was a vision in this film.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't make my list, but Paul Bettany is definitely one of those guys who I love seeing show up in things, and not just in WandaVision, although I'm enjoying WandaVision. He was really good here. I liked seeing him in this.
All right. Well, let's move on to our number 4 films.
Ooh, we're getting down to it.
Getting down to it. That's right. What's your number 4, Will?
Okay. So the next one is on Netflix, and this is of the different films that I'm talking about, this is going to be probably the least accessible watch, in that, like, this is not one to watch while you've got your phone out, or while you're cooking dinner, or while you're having kind of friends over, and
It's only 4 ways to measure it, Will. Never, rarely, sometimes, or always.
I'm going to call this one sometimes, because I think some movies you can just sort of breeze into, and some you have to really take the time to meet on their level. And I'm thinking of Ending Things on Netflix as one of those films. This movie is it's written and directed by Charlie Kaufman, who is, I mean, he's one of my favorite things when it comes to movies. Very notable. Gosh, what all has he done? Being John Malkovich and Melissa, Schenectady, New York, Schenectady, New York.
Yeah.
I always go back and forth. And he wrote Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, one of my absolute favorite films of all time. Adaptation. He's just a wonderful, wonderful mind. And this story follows two Jessies, actually. Jesse Plemons and Jesse Buckley. Jesse Plemons, who we've seen in a lot of things, including Breaking Bad, very notably, kind of broke out there. Jesse Buckley, we saw as the lead in Wild Rose, which I know we talked a little bit about last year. And they are in a car in a snowstorm driving to Jesse Plemons's parents' house, sort of kind of like a farm out in the middle of nowhere. Parents played by David Thewlis and Toni Collette, who is one of just the best things in any movie. She's been having a bit of doubts about the relationship, though, and as she gets there, things start to unravel. The movie starts to do some very challenging things, I'll say that, go in some very bizarre directions, and the more and more time you spend with it, sort of picking up all the different pieces that it gives you and sort of putting them together into what the film actually is, it takes on a very different shape, one that is incredibly rewarding, one that has a lot to say about some very specific subjects, and it builds to a wonderful crescendo of a final set of scenes in the film that left me absolutely gobsmacked. I'm thinking of Ending Things is the type of movies. It's the type of movie that reminds me why I love movies. It's creative and it's out there. It's unlike anything that I've ever seen, and it's just such a breath of fresh air.
Well, I'm gonna bank on this one. It
Oh.
might come up later, but I agree with everything you said. Not super accessible as many Charlie. If you've seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, you know that it's kind of twisty and like what you're seeing on the screen may not exactly be what's really happening. And it's. I think he likes to tell stories that way, and that's what makes it interesting. Um, uh, I love this. This is one that I'm going to save it. I'll just save it right now. Stop.
All right. And as I haven't seen this movie, I cannot comment. But Will, thank you so much for your number 4. Jim, what's yours?
Number 4 is another one that I banked earlier. It's My Octopus Teacher, the documentary that I turned you on to, Brad. I'm just going to. The only thing I'm going to say about it is, when I was a little boy growing up watching TV on weekends or whatever, I would watch the Jacques Cousteau specials. And they kind of brought people, me especially, into a different world, like this underwater world. And for a long time as a little boy, I wanted to be an oceanographer. Like even into my teens, I thought I would be like some kind of oceanography scientist or something. I was that fascinated with the oceans and life in the oceans. So this movie hit that sweet spot for me, but also how it kind of showed on the screen without just kind of like hitting you over the head with it, how two beings from totally different worlds can sometimes form a bond and some kind of emotional communication that is, and I think the way this movie shows that really elevates this film. I love this film. I would say it's my favorite straight documentary of the year, but there's another film on here we could talk about that might be a documentary. But yeah, My Octopus Teacher, my number 4.
Well, I liked it. So
Yeah. Right.
All right. Excellent. Well, moving on to my number 4. This film came out on Christmas Day of 2020. It is not Wonder Woman 84, so you can let that breath out. It's okay. It's not going to be that. This movie stars Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey. After landing the gig of a lifetime, a New York jazz pianist suddenly finds himself trapped in a strange land between Earth and the afterlife. This movie is available on Disney Plus, and of course, it is Soul. Jim, you mentioned Disney Pixar films earlier. God, this movie was really, really powerful for me. I know we reviewed it on the show, so I don't feel like I need to go on at length. If you're curious about this film, go check that episode out. It's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 episodes ago. But it's an amazing film that to this day, a month after seeing it, still has changed the way I look at living my life on an everyday basis. So, pretty powerful message about sort of, being in the moment and living for the now. I don't think that's a spoiler to say lots of movies do that, but I got to give some major props to Jamie Foxx. He kind of bugs me in a lot of things. I forgot that it was Jamie Foxx in this movie. I was transported, you guys. Same with Tina Fey. I love Tina Fey, but a little Tina Fey goes a lot of Tina way. That doesn't quite work. But same thing here. I kind of forgot that it was Tina Fey. I just got very immersed in this world. It was interesting. A member of our quarantine who is staying with us for a while watched this film with us, and he's from New York City. And so it was interesting to see sort of his reactions to the New York City in Seoul. It's in the trailer. There's a scene where like a rat is dragging a slice of pizza like down the sidewalk. And Kevin turns to us and he's like, yeah, that's pretty much New York City. And I'm like, what? That really happens? Totally, apparently, that's a thing. So, first of all, this maybe really put New York City kind of near the top of my list, babe, of places I want to go when COVID is no longer such a concern. I've always wanted to go to New York City in the fall. I've been there in the winter and I've been there in the spring. I'd love to be there on like a cold autumn crisp day, but like
Yeah.
when it's sunny and
Just make sure you watch where you're walking, please.
yeah, I don't want to fall and kill myself
Sure.
accidentally and end up having to fight for my soul like in some kind of Hunger Games afterlife thing.
Right.
Anyway, I think this film is fantastic. I think what's unfortunate about this film, jazz music is very much part of its DNA. That's not what's unfortunate. What's unfortunate is a lot of people like me are not big fans of jazz music, and I think it turned a lot of people off from seeing this film. They're like, oh, it's about a jazz musician. The music is a really important part of this film, but like, if like me, jazz is not your jam, don't worry about that. Like, it's about so much more than that. But I will say, I've started listening to a little jazz, similar to what I heard in this film, and I kind of like that this film did that for me. I'm not becoming a jazz music fan overall, but I'm picking at the edges a little maybe, and I didn't think I would. So there you go, my number 4.
Fun pick.
Yeah.
Fun pick. This one's going to be in my like honorable mentions. Didn't make the list proper, but it's a really good pick. The music is really good. The score, Trent Ross and Atticus Ross do some of the scoring.
Trent Reznor, yeah.
Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross do that, and it's so delightful seeing their trajectory. Some of the animation, especially there's some stuff that happens. I don't know if I want to say kind of everything's kind of soft blue in the parts of the movie where everything's are soft blue, and I'll leave it at that, are just absolutely breathtakingly animated. And there's an interesting note here from Hamstracked in chat. The writer and director of Soul, Kemp Powers, also wrote One Night in Miami, which came up earlier in my list. And Kemp Powers has one other major writing credit on his list between Soul, One Night in Miami, and he is a staff writer for Star Trek Discovery. So, like it's, I can see why, some of that writing might resonate with you for another reason, Brad.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Well, that's my number 4. We're down to our top 3 films. Now, before we get into our top 3, this is kind of like when they go to commercial break on American Idol before they reveal the votes. We had some listeners submit some of their picks for some of their top films of 2020. Let's just go through some of those real quick. Mary K. Meadows called out Fat Man and Wolf of Snow Hollow. I've not seen either of those. Jim, Will, have you? Are those? We don't have to go through them one by one, but are they solid picks?
Solid picks. Wolf of Snow Hollow is written, directed, and starring Jim Cummings, who also did Thunder Road. He's one of those like up and coming guys that you should be on the lookout for. So good pick.
And I honestly hadn't heard of the Fat Man movie.
Wait, a chaser hasn't heard of a movie called Fat Man?
Honestly, I have not.
It's
Fat
Mel
Man and Bobbin.
But
Mel
my
Gibson
interest is piqued.
Mel Gibson plays Santa Claus, and an assassin comes after him, so he has to defend himself. It's a wild premise. A lot of fun.
All right. Okay. Well, Mary, thank you so much for that list. Martin Sudlow McKay has 3 films for us in no particular order: Tenet, Underwater, and Extraction. What do we think? Some good picks there.
Underwater. I am probably one of the biggest K-Stu fans in the world. So you are. I love the pick of Underwater here. We reviewed that one the same episode we did Weathering with You.
Yes,
it was our super wet episode.
It was moist.
It was. It was moist.
It was moist.
All right, and we've got co-hosts of the Find Your Film podcast. They both submitted some movie choices for us. Hamstracked had Uncle Peckerhead, My Octopus Teacher, which we've discussed. Lose the Flower of Evil, The Trial of the Chicago 7, and Rent a Pal. And then Bruce, who's also with us in the live chat. Bruce, hello. He has number 10, Small Axe. Number 9, The Painter and the Thief. 8, Devs. That was a TV show, not a movie.
That's
But
okay.
it counts, right? Because it's like a multi-part movie, just as a TV show.
I'm counting
Right?
it.
We'll accept that.
I almost counted another TV series in my top 10.
Queen's Gambit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did. I have it as an honorable mention.
This close. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Oops, spoiled myself in terms of my list, not actually spoiling myself. Number 7, Swallow. 6, Relic. 5, The Old Man, the movie. 4, Driveways. 3, Wolf Walkers. Hey, that showed up again. 2, Dogs Don't Wear Pants. Apparently BDSM is popular. And 1, Sound of Metal, which that was on your list. So what do you think? Do our friends at the Find Your Film podcast have some good choices on their list?
Driveways is a dark horse sneak pick that could have made anywhere on my list had I given enough thought to it. It's one of those quiet character pieces that I really, really dug. In the end, I think got drowned out by maybe more impactful movies for me, but I really did love Driveways, and it's great for giving it some love in your list.
Yeah, love seeing the pick of Uncle Peckerhead here, which is just one of the most. Yeah, I mean, it's reductive to say a movie that's about a punk band is one of the most punk rock movies of the year, but just in its energy and the way that it tackles what it's going for, it's rad as fuck. And Bruce's picks, The Old Man movie, we watched that one together, air quotes, at Fantastic Fest Virtual this year, and we're like, oh my god, did you see that afterwards? Swallow was just one of the You'll never think about marbles and thumbtacks again the same way after watching that one. Some great picks here.
All right, fellas, this is it. We're down to our top 3 films of 2020. If everything else was the potatoes and the vegetables and maybe the roll with some butter and pineapple, we've now reached the meat, the main course, if you will, of our meal. Will, what is your number 3 pick of 2020?
All right. So my number 3 pick was one that was spent probably half of the year in my number 1 slot. It's just sort of weird how these things come together at the end. This is the movie First Cow, directed by Kelly Reichardt. First Cow, it's set in Oregon, sort of during the fur trade days, and it follows this cook who finds himself out there sort of trying to figure out how to make it through kind of frontier life. And he comes across this Chinese immigrant who's sort of in the same boat. The two soon discover that there is a cow that was actually brought in by sort of a dude who has, I guess, more means than some of the other people there. And they hatch a plan to steal its milk, make some biscuits with it, and sell those for a profit to all of the people who live there. It is a wonderfully touching at times story of kind of just male friendship that doesn't fall into a lot of bro movies have a lot of toxic masculinity, that whole we got to fuck each other over before we become friends with one another, those types of things. And this isn't that type of movie. There's a gentleness to this, but there's also some really real stakes because, I mean, think about what, if you cross people who have more means than you in frontier days, things can go really, really wrong for you really, really quick. First Cow is such a wonderful movie. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is available for VOD, so please go watch this movie. It's such a wonderful film.
Abstracts in the live chat says, yep, First Cow is definitely the meat of this list.
Will, good pick. I'm going to hold off some comments, but I'm a big Kelly Reichardt movie fan. I've really grown to love her style of the stories she picks and how she presents them. Wendy and Lucy is one of my favorite movies of all time. Girl and her dog kind of movie. So yeah, good pick for number 3.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Jim, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is a movie that Will had already talked about, so I don't have to talk about too much. It's Charlie Kaufman's I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Like I said, this is one of those movies that, like, what you're watching on the screen isn't necessarily what may be happening. So it's you've got to kind of dig into this movie, and I think it probably warrants a second viewing. I bet it really reveals a lot of things in its second viewing, because the first time through you're just trying to, it's like you're treading water trying to figure out what the fuck, where is this film going, like this is happening now, this is happening. It maybe doesn't make total sense kind of until the end, but then on a second viewing I think you could pick those things up. But it's a really, really good movie called I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
All right. Another very solid pick that is, of course, co-signed. It's interesting. This is starting to happen to form where films are starting to duplicate or triplicate.
Converging.
We're converging. My number 3 is a film that was brought up earlier, Jim, by you. And the synopsis is: 2 Elven brothers embark on a quest to bring their father back for just one day. Starring Chris Pratt, Tom Holland, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Onward.
Mm-hmm.
Available right now on Disney Plus. You can also watch it on Prime Video for $3.99. But if you have Disney Plus, and a lot of folks do, no excuse not to watch this. For anybody who loves Dungeons and Dragons, for anyone who maybe grew up with like 70s and 80s cartoons like I did, fun adventure romps, this film is definitely for you. The trailers for this film were just criminal. They were awful trailers. They made it look slapstick, dumb, idiotic. There is some slapstick, dumb, idiotic stuff happening, mainly with the brother character played by Chris Pratt. He kind of brings the funny in this film. But this film is not all about that. Like, this is like 2 brothers who don't understand each other, like going on an adventure to try and reconnect with a parent that they have lost. And as someone who has lost a parent that was very close to, this movie hits particularly close to home. I've actually been really jonesing to watch this movie again. So, babe, hearing you talk about it earlier, I know Kevin hasn't seen it, so maybe we'll throw that on at some point when we have a working TV or maybe in the projector room. But I've seen this movie 3 times already now since we saw it in what was that, March? I think.
Oh,
yes.
God.
April,
It had to be. It had to be. I'm looking up now, but it had to be March because it was the first thing we saw. Yeah, March 6th. So there you go. We had just seen The Way Back, and then movie theaters closed down, so we had to watch this at home. But incredibly, incredibly powerful. The visuals are awesome. It's got some great music. Best use of a van in any movie ever, I'll just say, in my opinion. So Onward.
Well, you did have it higher than Scoob, so I guess it's a little better van than that van.
Look, I love the Mystery Machine, but it's no Guinevere. Okay, thanks.
Hey, Brad, do you know what Onward has in common with Dogs Don't Wear Pants?
Hitting things with a stick.
No, they're both very popular with dungeon masters.
I love that. And actually, are there blindfolds in both?
I think so.
Okay. How about electricity on nipples?
I don't remember. I know that was a huge part of Onward. I don't remember if.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, that completes number 3 on our list. Moving on to our number 2s. Will, what's your number 2 pick?
All right. Number 2 is where I start to look ahead to the future a little bit. This is a film that I caught at the kind of in November. It was playing at the Hamptons International Film Festival. I bought myself a ticket to this one. It had like it was available for another 2 hours, and it's like a 2-hour movie. So I'm like, oh shit, jumped on it real quick to watch it. And it's Nomadland. directed by Chloe Zhao,
Yeah.
starring Frances McDormand. Chloe Zhao, she gave us The Writer, which we've raved about here on this show. And this movie follows Frances McDormand. She is a woman who's lost everything in kind of our most recent Great Recession. She is working sort of the gig economy and sort of decides to embark on a journey across across America, specifically kind of like the western part of America, as she works short-term jobs in different places, sort of like living on the road, kind of like taking quick jobs and sleeping in her little van type thing as she goes around. It's not a flashy movie. It, much like with The Writer, Chloe Zhao works with a predominantly non-actor cast. With Frances McDormand, a couple other people in here who are actors, sort of like work, pulling the performances together. This is such a wonderful and beautifully panoramic and also incredibly tragic in places look at what happens when the American dream is not really accessible to the people that we consider to be like, are both vulnerable communities and also the ones who are doing a lot of the labor that we don't want to do ourselves. And Frances McDormand, again, shoulders all of that like a true champion. I think that, if Riz Ahmed was my favorite actor of the year, I think Frances McDormand is my favorite actress of the year. And the two of them sort of like, I go back and forth kind of debating on like which one was my best performance overall. But Nomadland is coming out very, very soon. If you want to see it this way, it's having an IMAX release on January 29th. So you can see it there. But if you, like me, are still steering clear of theaters, it's doing a theatrical and Hulu rollout on February 19th. So if you have Hulu, you're just a few weeks away from watching this one, and you absolutely should. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's this one and probably your next one are two of the most films I've been looking forward to the most, and of course I'm frustrated because I haven't been able to see them, but I'm also I'm excited to see them. I saw it pop up on the Loft's website today. Of course, I will not be going to the Loft to see it, but I'm encouraged to hear that it's going to be on Hulu as well.
You know what I'm excited for you about, Jim, is that if you think about any other year, about this time of year, we're talking about, January movies, February movies suck. But because the way this worked out, like you actually have some things like to look forward to. Like, it's not just like, okay, guys, let's talk about I, Frankenstein. Like, you've got Nomadland coming up, and that's super exciting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. Jim, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is we'll call it a documentary because I think it's somewhat partly a documentary. It's on Netflix this year. It's by a documentary filmmaker called Kirsten Johnson, and it's called Dick Johnson is Dead. It's kind of a love letter to her dad and his life and what she's meant to him, and kind of a tender and entertaining eulogy for us to all see and enjoy. Not after someone has died, but while, before he dies. And this is not a spoiler, but the movie goes through like all these fabricates like all these ways that Dick Johnson has died. And I think it's an amazing idea. It sounds crazy, right? You're taking this guy who's near the end of his life, in real life, and you're making him like enact his death over and over and over and over. It sounds cruel. It sounds awful. But I think it's an amazing idea, and God bless Dick Johnson for submitting to this, and his daughter for having this idea and bringing it to us. This is a crier. It's got some wonderful sequences in here, just dreamlike sequences that really got me. So I don't know what else I can say about this film, but Dick Johnson is Dead. It's on Netflix. No excuse not to see this. If the title turns you off, I mean, it's kind of in your face title. But this is it sounds like it's a movie about death, but it's really a movie about life and the life of Dick Johnson in particular from his loving daughter. It's wonderful.
It killed me to not put this one in my top 10. It's in my honorable mentions. It's the film that gave me easily kind of like my biggest ugly cry of the year. Not because it's sad, but because it stares face first into the concept of mortality, this big question mark thing that all of us have to face, but none of us will truly understand until we no longer understand it, I suppose. Right. But it unflinchingly, and in some cases beautifully, and in some cases like embraces just like this like what it is to be at that stage of life, but all told through like the story of a man and his daughter connecting over this moment. It's such a wonderful film.
Yep.
All right. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your number 2 pick. My number 2 pick is a film that I literally saw just before we jumped on to record the podcast. It's actually a film that I saved until the very, very end of qualifying films. Hi, Merlin, for 2020. And how interesting, Jim, that you brought this movie up seconds ago, because Dick Johnson is Dead is my number 2 film of 2020. Fantastic film, Jim, for all the reasons that you mentioned. This resonated with me a lot. My grandfather on my dad's side had Alzheimer's, so he went through a lot of this. Alzheimer's is a little bit different from dementia, but I just recognized so much of what Dick was going through and the family. Also, my grandmother on my mom's side had really bad dementia before she passed, and so. There's just so much, obviously I didn't film, fake deaths for my grandpa and my grandma. But just, the ways that folks going through dementia and Alzheimer's, like, look at their end of life or look at how they live is both beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. I remember asking my grandma one time, when her memory started getting really, really bad, like, Grandma, what is it like to walk into a room and have a conversation and then forget you had that conversation and ask the same question all over again? And she's like, well, the beautiful thing, Snadley, because that's what she called me, I don't fucking remember it, so I'm fine. And so I'm watching this film and I'm watching Dick, and I get the sense that people that go through this maybe make a certain peace with it, right? But they're also still trying to live their lives for the people who are still going to be around when they're gone. So, Jim, you mentioned that this movie is kind of an affirmation of life. I'm totally on board that train. I think that's absolutely beautiful. I think for anyone who hasn't had someone in your life with dementia or Alzheimer's, this film is really great to watch just in case that ever happens. There are things that will happen where someone with dementia will ask you the same question 5 minutes after they asked it originally, because they've totally forgotten that they asked you that question or what you answered. And I know so many people, and I'll be honest, myself as a teenager, I went through this, that get ragingly upset at being asked the same question over and over and over again. They're just mad and they're frustrated and they just don't understand. That is dementia, that is Alzheimer's. So anyway, powerful film. Don't want to get too maudlin, but Jim, I'm really glad that you put this one on my radar as well. Good film.
I didn't know I had, but I'm glad you got a chance to catch up with it.
Some things I keep things under the vest.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, listen, we're here. Oh, wait, Jim. Oh, you're holding up a number 1. Yeah, we have arrived, everybody. Our number 1s. So, we're going to go through some very quick honorable mentions. We're going to do that first, guys, before we reveal our number 1s. Will, what were your honorable mentions for 2020?
I'll just rattle them off rapid fire.
Yep.
I loved the Small Axe series, but specifically Lovers Rock was my favorite of those Steve McQueen films. Beanpole, you should definitely watch that if you want to see some of the most gorgeous cinematography of the year. Time was one of my favorite documentaries of the year. Very tragic and very timely. Dick Johnson is Dead. David Byrne's American Utopia. Just a straight up recording of a concert should not be that amazing, but it is. She Dies Tomorrow is a wonderfully offbeat and terrifying idea of virality, but if an idea goes viral instead of a disease, which feels appropriate this year. Spontaneous, a young adult story about kids exploding, and it fucking slaps. Soul is one of my honorable mentions. Shithouse is the I feel like it's the it wears the mantle of Linklater's like Before series, like just a wonderful like people walking and talking film. And then Bacurau, which is a movie that has Udo Kier in it and a bunch of other things. But the thing you need to know about it is Udo Kier going like fucking full Udo Kier in it. Yeah, so those are the 10 that I think those 10 could have been my top 10, and I would have been very happy with that. I just couldn't squeeze them into the list.
All right. Jim, what are your honorable mentions?
I'll do the same. I'll cover them very quickly, just titles mostly. The Painter and the Thief, a documentary. That was very interesting. Uncle Frank, we talked about that one. Small Axe, Lovers Rock specifically. I really like that one. The Devil All the Time didn't get any talk. I like that one. That was the new Batman, Robert Pattinson. In that one, that was pretty good. Bacurau, you mentioned that. The Five Bloods, Spike Lee's ensemble film, I really loved. The Beastie Boys story documentary, Never Really, Sometimes Always. The Invisible Man, The Queen's Gambit did make my honorable mentions as a movie, even though it's a series. The Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart documentary, and Underwater, K-Stew, Stan right there, Underwater.
All right. Excellent.
Yep.
I will do the same. I've got a few different ones here. Well, maybe not so different. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, The Invisible Man, Queen's Gambit, again a TV series, but really it's a movie in 7 parts. Underwater, one of the first films that I really liked Kristen Stewart in. Happiest Season, really loved. Richard Jewell, 1917, which came out here for us to see. Wow. It was like one of the first movies we saw in January. Yeah. The Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? So there you go. Those are my
awesome
mentions.
Plenty of overlap.
Indeed. All right. Well, this is really it. We are back from commercial break here on The Voice. It's time to find out who won. Will, what is your number one film of 2020?
My winner is Minari. Minari is first of all, it's another one that is coming soon. Theatrical on February 11th, but then VOD on February 26th. So right around the corner. Minari is a story. It's set in the 1980s in Arkansas, and it stars the most notable name in it is Stephen Yen, who we saw in. You probably most recognize him from The Walking Dead. But you would also, he's been in a few incredible things lately, including Burning, which is just an absolutely stellar movie. And this is a story about them trying to capture their version of the American dream. They move, this Korean family moves to Arkansas in the 80s, and they buy a plot of land, and they're going to try to make it work. Meanwhile, they're trying to make it work both within their family. This was a big shift for them, and not everyone was 100% on board or comfortable with it. And also, not everyone in their community fully gets them, and they don't necessarily get everyone in their community. And so they're helped out by the grandmother comes from Korea and comes to help them out, specifically with the main character of this is this young boy played by Alan S. Kim, this kid named David. And he's a young boy who is he's a child actor, but he turns in just like one of the all-time great child performances here. And the story really follows the father, like, grasping onto this American dream so hardly that it's almost like makes his hands bleed as he's holding it so hard, while the boy is trying to find his way and connect with this grandmother from a culture that isn't his. He's grown up the entire time in America, and she comes from Korea. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie, just in every way you look at it, from the way it's written, the way it's performed, the way every shot looks. Minari is just one of those movies that as soon as it came along, I realized that this was going to be my new number one, and it would take an actual like act of God to dethrone it, and that never came. Minari is the goods.
Well, I can't validate the pick yet, but it is one of my most anticipated movies alongside Nomadland. So I can't wait to see it.
I can't wait for you to see it either. I know your tastes, and sometimes you look forward to a movie and like it doesn't deliver. I think you're going to be in good shape with both No Man's Land and Minari. I think knowing what you like, I think they're gonna scratch that itch.
Cool. I'm even more excited.
All right, Jim, you know what you're going to be doing. Jim, what is your number one of 2020?
My number one of 2020 was already mentioned. Will gave it a really good, I guess, plug as his number 3, and that's First Cow. Available now on Apple TV Plus, I think, Amazon Prime, YouTube. It's a Kelly Reichardt film. Look, Kelly Reichardt makes films that are just so gentle and about the human spirit that I don't think there's anybody really making films like that anymore that actually work. All the things you said, Will. A movie about a male friendship in hardship, times of hardship, kind of leaning on each other and getting through without the bro stuff. It's not a romantic story between two men, but it is a true friendship, and shows the kind of what the meaning of friendship really is. Just really poignant. I loved the bookend scenes in this movie. Some of the best bookending you'll see, I think, in terms of structure of films. It's First Cow. It is available now on streaming platforms, so check it out. There's the beef.
All right. Well, another solid pick, given that, we'll call that one out as well. I have not seen First Cow, but I've heard great things. Maybe at some point I can check that one out. Jim, you had mentioned Bee Gees' How Can You Mend a Broken Heart as honorable mention. I called that one out too. Hemi in the chat says, the Bee Gees movie title sounds like they have it backwards. Question, how can you mend a broken heart? Answer, the Bee Gees.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So true. I may have been listening to the Bee Gees on heavy rotation since we watched that film up at the cabin over New Year's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have,
I've been listening to them a lot. It's been helping my quarantine heart. If that's a thing. All right. So I guess we're down to me. My number one film of 2020 actually came up on your list as well, babe, earlier in the show. The synopsis for my number one film is, at a birthday party in 1968, New York, a surprise guest and a drunken game leaves 7 gay friends reckoning with unspoken feelings and buried truths. That, of course, is the boys in the band. Jim, I know you got the DVD of the 1970 version. I would love to watch that with you as soon as we get a working TV. Although my PlayStation 5 plays DVDs, I just remembered, so we could watch it in the projector room.
Perfect.
Or something if you want. But I didn't think I was going to love this movie. I'll be honest with you. Period pieces aren't typically my thing. Add on to that, like, I don't know, gay drama. I feel like there's enough gay drama in the lives of myself and a lot of my friends. So watching a gay drama thing, isn't always like first on my list. But Zachary Quinto, I love and adore him so much, but I will say Jim Parsons, who I used to enjoy on The Big Bang Theory, as an actor just got like so one note for me, and I got so tired of the Sheldon character that I've honestly like tuned other performances of his out. And I think that's a detriment because for me, he's easily the best part of this whole film. Obviously, he plays the main character. He's sort of the hub for everybody, but he gave just a fantastic, stellar performance here. I mentioned earlier, this film is really, it's an ensemble film. Everybody plays a role. Everybody has a story. Even characters that you think are minor characters, like a cowboy who shows up as a birthday present. Like, there's some deep shit that happens there. And so just seeing the dynamics between these characters is amazing. That stage play feeling of like one set, even though it has like different sections, right? Like there's the upstairs, bathroom, bedroom, there's the downstairs living room, there's the patio. It's just so wonderfully like translated and done. So this movie is an absolute like grand slam, knocked out of the park for me. Bobby Miller says, have you guys seen the documentary about the making of the film? Yes, we have, Bobby Miller, and it's pretty fantastic as well. Really, really interesting to hear, Jim Parsons and Zachary Quinto, Matt Bomber, like talking about these characters and their own experiences with the original boys in the band, and doing this on the stage as well as the movie. Pretty fucking awesome. So Boys in the Band, you can stream it on Netflix right now. Don't let the gay drama turn you off. It's awesome.
Yeah, and unfortunately we lost the writer, Mark Crowley.
Crowley.
Yeah, this year, right around the time, I think it was right before the time we actually when this Netflix thing came out, unfortunately. So that also kind of was a poignancy around that film. So
well, and I didn't even know that Mark Crowley had died until watching the documentary. They have a little thing at the end, and watching the film, I've seen it twice now, and seeing it a second time, knowing that Mark had passed away, made it even more poignant for me. So,
right,
yeah.
Wow.
This is our dancing on the balcony moment. We've we've made it.
I'd play some like 60s Motown music that we could all dance to, but then we get a copyright strike from YouTube, so probably shouldn't do that.
We could just sing it. Nowhere to run to, baby. Nowhere to hide.
Hold on, the lawyers are at the door.
That was just too close to the original.
It was too close. Too close.
Do you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
Sure.
Speaking of copyright strikes, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, we reviewed the new Bill and Ted movie. And I don't know if you remember this, but we played the trailer in the audio version of the show. And then, Will, I think you had inserted the trailer in the YouTube version.
I didn't even insert the trailer in it. All I did was I used our normal show art.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, which is,
It's just an image.
Yeah.
Well, we got a copyright strike from the company, apparently, that does, copyright stuff for Bill and Ted. And so YouTube, slapped us on the wrist and was like, you're bad. You're bad.
Don't do that again.
Well, anyway, I noticed today that the streaming platform we use to stream to YouTube and Facebook would not let us stream to YouTube because our show was not in good standing because of that copyright strike. So I had to attend copyright school on YouTube on our behalf today to remove that strike and allow us to broadcast.
Oh my
the show
God.
today.
They're doing that for one
image.
questionable strike.
Yeah.
And the problem is that it's a big problem with the way DMCA works through YouTube. There are a lot of people who it falls under fair use. You're allowed to use these things for review purposes. So I mean we're in the right.
Podcast.
But YouTube, to protect themselves from liability, they always err on the side of caution. Which means that in some cases, artists have uploaded their own original music, and they've had copyright strikes against themselves. They've had their own stuff monetized when it's their own art. And there's a way to counter it, but it involves like basically saying, going through a very involved process that's more onerous to the content creators. YouTube's got some problems.
So this is defensive driving school for YouTube.
Yeah.
Is that what you have to go to?
Yeah. So basically, what it is it's a like 10-minute video, and this is how dated this video is, guys. It's a Happy Tree Friends video. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were popular back in like 2007.
A what?
I don't even know if they're still a thing anymore.
The Happy Tree Friends. It was a YouTube video series. It wasn't just like on YouTube, but like about these like super cute cartoon characters like dismembering each other.
They'd like violently murder each other.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyway, so you had to watch the video and then you had to take a test. And I passed the test 100%. But company who's responsible for Bill and Ted, guess what? Your fucking movie was not on our top 10 lists anywhere to be seen. So FYI.
Yep. And not because of this. We gave it a fair shake, but still, and I'll also, I guess it probably wasn't the actual studio. There's a lot of There's a lot of companies out there that sort of work on behalf of some of those and just go super litigious for the sake of it.
Yep. Hamstrat says, crazy, you guys get a strike for a picture, yet certain full movies are uploaded and nothing. Who knows the way it works?
I don't either, because there are shows out there that like will play a whole song from a band, like a first reaction kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they just do it constantly.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But you know what's not crazy, guys? All the amazing movies we saw in 2020, despite a pandemic going on, and all the wonderful films that are yet to come in 2021. A year-ish from now, fellas, we're going to be talking about a whole new batch of amazing movies. But this episode is kind of our way of clearing the decks and re-engaging with a whole new slate of films. So I hope you're as excited as I am for all that's to come in 2021. I just want to thank all of our listeners for chiming in with some of your favorite films. Great hanging out with you all. Thank you for being part of that conversation. Kevin, who is downstairs right now, says Bill and Ted's excellent, redacted. There you go, Kevin. That's perfect. Hemi says Bill and Ted's bogus copyright strikes. That's amazing. I love it. Excellent.
Bill and Ted face our lawyers.
Well, that's amazing too. All right, Jim, where can people chat with you between now and our next episode?
Find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @JJPOutWest, or find me under my name, Jim Pugliafico, on Facebook.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Mary Kay Meadows says, love you guys. Good night, Mary. We love you too so very much. Hope to see you next time. Have a good week between now and then. Will, where can folks find and chat with you, my friend?
I'm on Twitter. My handle there is @whatevercove. You can find me on Facebook. Just look for William Lindis. Send me a message first to make sure that you got the right William Lindis and that I know that you're a real person and not a bot. And I also log everything at letterboxd.com. It's a place where you can log films, make lists, reviews, all sorts of things like that. If you just search for William Lindis, you should be able to find me there. Please give me a follow. I'll follow you back.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Will. You can find me on Facebook under Brad Harris. I'm the one with bear, chub, chaser, otter, dolphin, wolf, whatever, friends probably in common with you. Please send a message first, though, so that I know you're a real person. The chat bot game is real. You can also find me on Twitter @iBradPro. I'm on Letterboxd there as well. I didn't log all of the movies I saw last year. Every year, I'm like, I'm going to log everything on Letterboxd. And then I went to review my movies for this year, and I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't do that. So it's not a New Year's resolution by any means, because I don't do those, but I am going to try and be a little more dedicated to that, since we're kind of starting over at the top of the year now for movies. So yeah, I'll have to make that work. But
Start simple. Start simple. And
right,
yeah.
I've only seen like, I don't know, 3 movies in 2021 so far, so it should be relatively easy to get
Yeah.
started. But James, oh my gosh, James says, "Good night, movie bears." James, we love and adore you.
Night,
Thanks so
James.
much for tuning in. Bobby Miller says, "Great show, guys. Stay safe. See you next time." Bobby, always a treat when you show up in the chat, my friend. Thanks for being a longtime listener and fan of the show. Good night, everybody. Be safe, stay sane, and we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye bye, everyone.